So I love meat.
Meat.
And it's something extremely difficult for me to give up.
We're gonna go to our favorite store, Metro.
So I chose Metro because it's the actual grocery store that I use and see every day, and who doesn't like a good student discount? Reading the meat market section of the supermarket tour was honestly not that surprising to me, and that's really sad because I feel like a lot of people, including myself, choose to ignore the fact that the animals we eat do face a lot of abuse, hormones, and they have very negative environmental impacts. However, what did surprise me is how much these impacts affect our own health and lives. Yeah. So because the meat market is so high in demand, because everyone loves meat, the biggest problem about it is the fact that we do this thing called factory farming. So animals are put into this tiny room, crowded and packed in there as much as possible, just to save space, time, and energy. For chickens specifically, this can reduce their egg production and causes violent and hysterical outbursts. For pigs and cows, they're stuck kind of sitting in their own poop. And this results in 3/4 of them across the US to catch and possibly die from pneumonia. But like, what about those free-range cows that grow on pastures and then live happy and die humanely? So that actually doesn't mean much. It's true that most cows in Canada are raised and grown on pastures, but 70% of them get sold and transported to meatpacking plants. Transportation alone is lethal due to long hours or even days of crowding and extreme weather conditions. The ones that do make it can be left half dead or hanging before being officially slaughtered.
So this pork that we found is raised without any hormones, no antibiotics. It's 100% Canadian pork.
So to combat all the diseases that are caused by factory farming, animals are administered a lot of antibiotics. Some, however, are fed medications that are strictly just to promote milk production and growth, because we need fat cows or fat beef. I don't know what I'm doing. Most of it gets eliminated from the miracles of digestion and poop, but some of these antibiotics can stay in the meat up till it's on our dinner plate. This is so bad because the more antibiotics we take into our bodies, the more resilient bacteria can get to them. I'm referencing the E. coli break. People almost died, or no, they did die. They did die. Yeah. No, sad face. Luckily, this almost pandemic has caused Canada to put an end and ban hormones and antibiotic uses. But what if I bought like organic meats and stuff from now on? Is that enough to save the world? Well, a long time ago, buying organic was the answer, but now our world is a little too far gone for organic practices to be considered stable. The high demand for meats made organic farming just a set of qualifications. So factory farming does still exist, just without the use of antibiotics and preservatives, which means that there's a really high mortality rate because animals aren't being treated when they're sick. So the supermarket tour does come to a solution that a lot of documentaries I've seen, like Cowspiracy and Earthlings, come to, which is veganism. So yes, it's sustainable, yes, it's doable, and yeah, it could be healthy if you tried. But as I've mentioned before, I love meat a lot. Like, I really hope that veganism isn't the only answer. So this may seem counterproductive to all the information that I have been exhibiting in this video, but actually it wasn't. It made me research whether total veganism was the only answer out there. I'm gonna spoil a little bit. It might not be. So animal-based products use more resources than plant-based products would. It takes about 5 kilograms of feed to feed 1 kilogram of meat. This leaves 1.1 billion people starving while we're trying to feed 2 billion cows to feed the world. All this overfeeding can lead to a term called desertification as well, Raising a lot of cows means we need a lot of space for them to graze. Overgrazing has led to the spreading of deserts to lands that were once fertile. Costa Rica alone has burned down 80% of their rainforests just to feed cows. However, both these documentaries push for everyone in the world to eradicate meat from their lives completely, but I still question how possible that is. So cows don't live in the wild anymore. There's a whole website on Wild Cattle Conservatory. It's a good read if you want to check it out, I guess. Most of them are completely domesticated for beef, meaning if we were to stop taking care of them for the sake of growing meat, they'd go completely extinct. Okay, I don't know if that was the greatest argument, but I do have a main concern about veganism, and that's how it's such a big luxury. Like, being vegan is a luxury that not everyone can afford. Sure, I could eat a sack of potatoes a week and call myself vegan, but in order to actually live a healthy and sustainable vegan diet, I'd have to find a lot of substitutes for a lot of foods that use animal byproducts, and this includes eggs, milk, butter, and all that fun stuff. This doesn't just include food, because being vegan also means living, like, not using any animal byproducts in your life. All clothes, makeup, and other things have to be free from them as well. Actually, leather's okay. I don't really care for leather. It's expensive and cruel. There's a lot of animal byproducts used to make makeup, that leftover whey, I think it's called whey, for after they finish making some cheese, they send it over and they put it in people's lotions to give it that really soft, awesome effect. We couldn't use that anymore. I guess it's okay. A lot of substitutes for that are extremely expensive. My point is, doing all of these and finding all these substitutes is very expensive. I know this is an extreme point to make, but if anyone's familiar with the documentary Living on $1, it's a great documentary, by the way. Please watch it, it's awesome. Some people are so deep in poverty that they have to actually mix lard into their food in order to get the right caloric intake to survive. They physically can't afford being vegan. I'm also aware that I'm a bit whiny about this, that I could give up meat if I wanted to, but I really don't. But this is why I also like the supermarket tour. It lists many, many alternatives that actually can be sustainable and helpful to our environment and our health. There are so many alternatives to reduce the high demand for meat and the high demand for factory farming practices. I learned while cooking dinner with my friend that the food that I was buying is not quite sustainable. Metro doesn't really explain where their meat comes from other than their cattle are grain-fed. Just knowing where all of your meat, food, and eggs come from makes a huge difference in your grocery shopping and your life, essentially. There's actually an independent butcher shop in Kensington I'm going to check out next week called Sanigan's, and they're really proud of explaining where their meat comes from and how they're treated, and yeah, it looks delicious. So I'm not saying that veganism is bad in any way, and people that do it are super awesome and are doing a great thing, and it's healthy and cool, but I'm just saying that there are ways to be sustainable and eat meat. There are ways to eat meat without completely destroying our environment. If everyone lessened the intake of meat that they ate every week, maybe did a vegetarian meal once in a while, we could possibly and potentially reduce the need for factory farming practices, which then will snowball into eradicating all the other problems that come with factory farming practices, including the introduction of antibiotics, hormones, animal abuse, and rainforest cutting downs. Yeah, I can eat meat sustainably.